Once that quiet period kicks in and the router is blocking all login attempts, it's going to actually go under your auxiliary line and your VTY lines, and it's going to apply this access list inbound. So that's the magic of the login blocking. It's saying, let's go ahead and do exactly what we said in the documentation. No telnet, no HTTP, no SSH, inbound on our VTY and aux lines. And usually don't touch base on how this stuff works. You invoke a function, you don't care as long as it works. But because of the way this works, it does set up a couple of quote-unquote gotchas that you're going to want to be aware of, and it's nice to understand how this works because you can see why these gotchas exist. And that's a preview of the next couple of slides. Potential login blocking problems. Okay, so the first of these is a fairly insidious little problem that if you write the configuration during the quiet period when the router is blocking, if you write your configuration with your write command or copy, running configuration, startup configuration, if you want to be all new school and verbose, what's going to happen is, since those access classes are applied inbound on your auxiliary and VTY lines in the running config at that period, it's going to copy those to the startup config. And that's bad juju, my friends, because here you can see your startup configuration. Look at our line section. Auxiliary and VTY has no filtering whatsoever. And now we write this, and this is during the quiet configuration, because this is what the running config has right now. It's saying I've got access class inbound SL underbar def underbar ACL for my auxiliary line and my VTY line. So you write that. It's now in your startup configuration. You reload your router, you lose power, whatever happens, the router boots up, goes to startup configuration, and it says, guess what? None of you jackasses are getting in because I'm blocking all this stuff. Nobody can get in via telnet, SSH, or HTTP. And that's ugly because now you're going to have to get somebody on the console line just to access your router and take off these stupid ACLs. So keep that one in mind. I mean, it might just be don't write your ACLs unless you've done a show login. But if you don't know about this, this one can be a real stab in the ass, especially in a work situation. Potential login blocking problems. Duh. If you have an existing inbound access list applied to your auxiliary or VTY lines, the login block feature will actually overwrite this during a quiet period. And this is another reason why you're going to want to configure your own quiet period ACL. So in this example, we have an IP access list. So we've got an access list that we're going to apply to our VTY lines. And what we're saying is anybody that's on the 10.1.12.0/24 subnet, you're good to go. You can go ahead and telnet SSH or HTTP into my VTY lines. That's what this inbound access list is doing. Anybody else, any other protocols, no, you can't access this. So this is actually a best practice. You want to minimize the access that you give to your VTY lines to devices that are within your network and you feel are safe. But say that I'm sitting on 10.1.12.69 for instance, and I go ahead and I try and log in. I log in 4 times with the wrong password. That's going to breach. Let's just say that breaches our login block for, and we invoke the quiet period on the router. What's going to happen then is you might assume that, well, this is still going to be in effect, that I could still get to this box via telnet from 10.1.12.1. But actually no, it's going to apply the access list that's specified for the quiet period, and if you don't specify one, it's going to use that default one, that SL underbar def underbar ACL. So at this point, everybody's locked out, and that means you can get up to some shenanigans with this, with login blocking, because like here we have a safe subnet. But if I decide, I'm a disgruntled employer, I'm just going to dick around, I can create a script to log in, every X seconds with a bad password, and you're going to have to jump on here. It's going to lock out everybody else, keep this thing in perpetual quiet mode until you can get somebody on the console port, to either disable login block or to specify a quiet period ACL. So there is room for, like I said, shenanigans with this, and it's good to keep that in mind. And that brings us to our last potential login blocking problem, which, as it turns out, really isn't a problem. Login blocking is designed to work on your VTY and auxiliary lines. It's not designed to work on your console port. So your line console 0. There is some benefit to having this feature enabled, though, for access via the console port, in that if you enable this and you configure the login on success log and or login on failure log, you're going to get logs generated for successful and failed attempts to log in via the console port. And the way that you can tell that these are from the console port is if you see the source of quad zeros and a local port of 0. That means it's coming in on your console port. So you can see it's the same type of logs that we discussed earlier. In this case, console hacker tries to get in, but that username is not known by the router, so we don't let him in. Second case, Cisco is a known username, but he fat-fingered the password, so he's not allowed in. Again, you see your quad 0 and local port. And also, you're going to see successful logins. So you can see that somebody logged in at 6:50 on March 1st, way back in 2002. This is good too because it's going to keep a at least a simple log of when people access via console line, because your biggest while you can set up security for the console line, your biggest security for this is just going to be physical security. Lock up that router. Don't give any Yahoo that's in the area access to the router. Don't have a console cable sticking out the back of the thing. But it's still nice, especially if you get somebody that's you see the config was written at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, and you say, well, somebody must have been in the MDF at that time and connected to the console port, because I see this login success at that time. So there is a benefit to this. It's not going to the one thing that you're not going to get is you're not going to get a quiet period. So if console hacker tries 3 times within 30 seconds on the VTY line and fails, well then yeah, it's going to lock it out. But if he does it 3 times on the console port, it's not going to lock you out. It doesn't invoke that quiet period. It also doesn't show, if you do a show login failures, it will not show failed attempts to access the console. So the biggest benefits are from these 2 logging commands.